the best birthday present I could possibly receive. My own mother's voice, Helen's voice, echoed through the dining room as cold as ice in the dead of winter. The clinking of silverware stopped. The guests' chatter died down. Every eye turned to her, then to me. I, Ava, at 32 years old, sitting at the table I had so meticulously planned, felt the air grow thin, too heavy for my lungs. She looked me dead in the eye, with a smile that held no warmth, and finished the sentence that would seal my fate. Would be if you, Ava, finally got out of my life and left me in peace. The silence that followed was deafening. Every second felt like an hour. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands, which were clutching a small, wrapped gift for her, began to tremble violently. It was as if a bomb had gone off in the center of my soul, and the shrapnel was the pitying, shocked stares of everyone around me. A punch to the gut would have hurt less. If you, like me, believe that what goes around comes around and that justice, no matter how long it takes, always finds a way, then subscribe to this channel right now because you won't want to miss how this public humiliation turned into my greatest and sweetest liberation. To the world, my mother, Helen, was perfection itself. President of the Willow Creek Garden Club, a charity event organizer, the impeccable widow of the late town doctor. Her public image was carefully cultivated, like one of her prize-winning rose gardens. But behind closed doors, the atmosphere changed. The sweetness gave way to a subtle poison, and I was her primary target. For as long as I can remember, I was on a never-ending quest for a crumb of approval that never came. It was the daily small jabs disguised as concern. Ava, stand up straight. A lady doesn't slouch. Ava, why can't you be more like your sister, Olivia? Olivia, my older sister, the golden child, successful in a big city, married with perfect kids. Every phone call, every visit from her was a spectacle where I became an invisible spectator in my own family. My father, Richard, was my safe harbor. He was the shield that absorbed Helen's blows, the only one who saw my talents and encouraged me. But he was gone, taken by a sudden heart attack when I was just 16. And with him went the last filter on my mother's cruelty. The criticism became relentless. I sacrificed my dreams for her. I won a scholarship to a prestigious university across the country, but I ended up at a local college because my mother conveniently started having dizzy spells. My love life? No relationship survived her scrutiny. Either the guy wasn't good enough, or her constant needs simply prevented me from having a life of my own. 2 years ago, her health problems, once just tools for manipulation, became real. Severe arthritis in her hip made her more dependent, and I, of course, stepped up. I was the caregiver, the driver, the one who managed her finances, the ever-available daughter. Olivia? She visited twice a year, was welcomed with a red carpet and praise, while I, who handled the day-to-day grind, was barely noticed. Still, I persisted. That 65th birthday would be different. I would make everything so perfect that she would have no choice but to finally see me. I arranged a dinner at her favorite restaurant, invited her closest friends, and begged Olivia to come for support. The gift was the final touch, a vintage sapphire and diamond brooch that cost me nearly $2,000, the money I'd been saving for a design course. My own dream, once again, deferred for her. On the day of the party, the torture started early. Texts about last-minute dietary restrictions, criticisms about me being late when I was actually waiting for her. At the restaurant, she made a point of arriving 45 minutes late and announcing to everyone that it was my fault, late as usual. During dinner, I was ignored, interrupted, and then the toast. The final blow. Those words broke me. I walked out of the restaurant like an automaton, leaving the untouched gift on the table. I drove home in a daze, the sound of my own shattered heart pounding in my ears. And in the midst of that overwhelming pain, a crystal clear truth emerged. I had been a ghost in her life for a long time. She just made my disappearance official. That night, sleep never came. In its place, a cold, sharp clarity took over. The pain gave way to determination. If she wanted me to disappear, I would grant her that gift. But it would be on my terms. The plan formed in my mind, not out of revenge, but out of survival. The next morning, the old Ava, the one who lived to please, died. In her place, a strategist was born. I called my job and quit. I contacted a lawyer who referred me to a financial planning expert, a Mr. Gable. I explained the situation, her financial dependence on me, the joint accounts. He gave me the roadmap. Freeze the accounts, don't empty them to avoid legal trouble, create a trust fund in her name managed by him, ensuring all her real needs, medical care, home maintenance, bills, were paid, but blocking any access to large sums of cash for luxuries or manipulation. The next week was a whirlwind of calculated activity. I put my house on the market for a below-market price to ensure a quick cash sale. I opened new bank accounts in my name with a temporary P.O. box address. I packed only what I would carry: clothes, my work equipment, a few books, and a quilt made by my grandmother, the only person who had loved me unconditionally. A week had passed since the dinner. Not a single call from Helen. Just a few texts from Olivia, which I ignored. The day I closed on the house sale, I took one last walk through my neighborhood, feeling the weight of goodbye. That night, I finalized the trust fund details and wrote a letter to Olivia, to be delivered by Mr. Gable 1 week after my departure. In it, I explained the account situation without revealing my new location. My last night in the only town I'd ever called home was on an air mattress on my empty bedroom floor. Before I went to sleep, I took the small package with the brooch. I put it in a padded envelope with a simple note. You asked for a different gift, so I'm returning this one. May you find the peace you're looking for. Goodbye. The next morning, I signed the papers, deposited the check from the sale, and from the Main Street post office, I mailed my last package to Helen. By 9:30 a.m., my car was pointed west, and Willow Creek was vanishing in my rearview mirror. I had no destination, only a direction. The feeling was a terrifying mix of freedom and panic. The days on the road were a form of therapy. Small towns, changing landscapes. I paid for everything in cash, building a new identity, a new story. I was Elisa, a freelance graphic designer who could work from anywhere. On the 6th day, I reached the coast. The forests, the fog, the smell of the ocean. Something called to me. I found a small town called Port Blossom, a place small enough to be overlooked by tourists, but with everything I needed. There was a rental listing, a small cottage overlooking the bay. It felt like a sign. The cottage was imperfect and therefore perfect. I signed the lease as Elisa. The first week was about rebuilding. I landed a few online gigs, enough to support myself, and I found a coffee shop, the High Tide, run by a woman named Diane. She was in her 50s, had a wise look in her eyes, and didn't ask questions. One day, I came into the shop more shaken than usual. I had made the mistake of checking my old email. There were increasingly worried messages from Olivia and an article in the local Willow Creek newspaper, "Elderly Mother Abandoned by Daughter." The story, quoting Helen, claimed I had emptied our joint accounts and vanished after a minor disagreement. The manipulation was so blatant it made my stomach turn. My hands trembled with rage. Even thousands of miles away, she was still controlling the narrative, painting me as the villain. That night, guilt, that old familiar friend, tried to pay a visit. But for the first time, something new pushed it away. Relief. I was free. Exactly 1 week later, my old phone, which I kept turned off, rang. It was Olivia. I let it go to voicemail. Her message made my heart freeze. Ava, please call me. Mom's in the hospital. She had some kind of cardiac episode. The doctors say it's not serious, but she's a mess. She can't access the accounts and the bills are piling up. She needs you. My first instinct, the one programmed into me for 32 years, was to run. To buy a ticket, go back, fix everything. But I stopped. I took a deep breath and forced myself to think like the new Elisa. I opened my laptop. There were more frantic emails from Olivia. A fundraising page started by my mother's friends titled Help Helen After Being Abandoned by Her Daughter, which had already raised over $3,000, and photos of her in the hospital looking frail, receiving flowers, being comforted. The performance of a lifetime. I was about to give in to despair when a discreet notification popped up. A message in my professional account from Dr. Sarah, our family doctor. The message was short and careful due to medical privacy, but it said everything. Ava, your mother's condition is stable and not life-threatening. It was a panic attack, not a heart attack. She is physically fine. I know there are two sides to every story. Take care of yourself. Her house of cards collapsed right in front of me. The hospitalization was real. The crisis was not. It was just the next level of her manipulation. I went straight to the high tide. Diane, the owner, saw my distress. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said. Something like that, I replied. And then, without me asking, she shared her own story. A controlling ex-husband who, when she left him, had also faked an emergency to get her back. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. What helped me was asking myself, if I go back, what will change? Is he magically going to become a better person, or am I just stepping back into the same cage? It was the question I needed. If I went back, Helen wouldn't change. I would only have lost the freedom I fought so hard to win. It was time for the confrontation. Not a face-to-face showdown, but a quiet, strategic checkmate. I called Mr. Gable. They're saying she has no access to money, I said, my blood boiling. She has access to everything she needs, Ava, he replied calmly, but her attempts to withdraw large undocumented sums have been denied. With my heart pounding, I logged onto the portal for the trust fund we had created, and there it was, in black and white. The final proof of her manipulation, a request for $5,000 for emergency medical expenses, with no documentation, denied. An attempt to withdraw $3,000 for home repairs, with no estimates, denied. And the most telling, a request to transfer $10,000 to Olivia's account for temporary support, denied. My plan had worked. The safety net I had built wasn't just for her, it was for me. It was an impenetrable wall against her financial manipulation. She wasn't helpless. She was without the control she had always used to crush me. In that moment, staring at those denied transactions on my computer screen, I felt a wave of power and relief so intense, it almost took my breath away. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I smiled. It was a calm smile, the first truly free smile of my adult life. Justice wasn't loud. It was the silent click of a deny button. I instructed Mr. Gable to issue a statement to the community and the fundraiser organizers, clarifying that a trust covered all of Helen's legitimate needs. I also sent him a dossier I had prepared, years of emails, texts, and bank statements proving the emotional and financial abuse. I asked him to give it all to Olivia. 2 days later, I got an email from her. The subject line, I had no idea. She had seen everything. The cruelty, the lies, the pattern. She described confronting our mother with the trust statements and how Helen, for the first time, was left speechless. The fundraiser was shut down amid a quiet scandal. The email ended with a plea, when you're ready, I'd like to rebuild our relationship, independent of Mom. I'm so sorry I left you to deal with this alone. Months passed. I was building my life in Port Blossom. My design business took off. I made real friends. My relationship with Olivia was being rebuilt, slowly, with honesty. And then, 6 months after I left, another letter from Helen arrived. This time, it was different. It was short, direct, and contained the words I had waited my entire life to hear. The way I treated you was wrong, I was cruel, and I am truly sorry. She said she had continued with therapy, not out of obligation, but because she realized she needed it. The journey was long. Disappearing from her life was the hardest thing I've ever done. But in disappearing from that toxic relationship, I finally began to appear, truly, in my own life. I discovered that the greatest act of self-love is sometimes having the courage to walk away. The most satisfying revenge wasn't a shout, but the silence of my absence, which forced her at last to listen to herself. This journey taught me that boundaries aren't walls to keep people out, but the foundations that allow us to build healthy relationships, including the one with ourselves. I learned that true justice isn't about punishing someone else, but about freeing ourselves from the cycle of pain and rewriting our own story on our own terms. So, what would you have done in my place? Would you have gone back at the first sign of trouble, or would you have moved forward without looking back? Let me know your opinion in the comments. I read them all. And if stories of overcoming injustice are what move you, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one.
The best birthday present I could possibly receive